For over 30 years, Leatherwood scopes have been used in war, from Vietnam to the Persian Gulf. The Leatherwood Sporter now makes that battlefield-proven technology available to sportsmen. As you frame a target of known size, the scope automatically compensates for the range to the target and the trajectory of your rifle. This means you don't have to know the range to the target or the trajectory of your rifle in order to make a successful long-range shot. The Leatherwood Sporter uses a special mount that is similar in concept to the time-proven leaf rear sight. Working with the mount is a precision programmable ballistic cam that is connected to the internal power change mechanism. The optical system uses a special glass reticle. The center of the reticle is based around using a standard 18-inch framing distance. Although there are over 50 other dimensions that are available on the reticle and the graduated scales. Let's start with a description of the parts of the scope, because many of these are entirely new. The scope uses conventional windage and elevation adjustments, and they are in quarter-minute clicks. The eyepiece and the eyepiece focus lock ring are also conventional. But instead of the conventional power change ring, we have the ballistic cam assembly. The new power ring is still graduated in magnification. Rotating about the power change ring is the ballistic cam. The ballistic cam rides on a Delrin pad located in the scope mount base. Behind the ballistic cam is the calibration ring. The numbers on the outside of the ring are used for two purposes. One, they are used for a reference system for the initial setting of the cam. Then in normal operation, they indicate the range at which the cam is zeroed. The calibration ring also contains the lock that connects the cam to the power change mechanism and allows it to be disconnected from the power change so the cam may be set independently of the magnification. The cam is disengaged by screwing the lock out and engaged by screwing it in. The third ring is the range ring. It is graduated in numbers that indicate the range to the target. The mount is an integral part of the scope and makes it possible for the ballistic cam to correct for trajectory. Here we see the scope tube removed from the scope rings or cradle. The scope cradle and the scope base are two pieces that are connected by large flat spring. The spring is secured to both the cradle and the base by large socket cap screws. The dynamics of the spring are such that the cradle is caused to precisely pivot about the front pivot pin. Located at the rear of the scope base is the Delrin pad on which the ballistic cam rides. This allows the ballistic cam to precisely adjust the scope for the range to the target. Mounting the scope to your rifle only requires standard Weaver bases. The next step is to set your scope for your particular cartridge. Using the CAM calibration chart in the rear of your manual, locate the reference number for your particular load. In our example of a .308 150 grain silver tip bullet, the reference number is 355. The first step is to disengage the cam lock and rotate it out of the way. The next step is to loosen the two range ring retaining screws. The range ring may then be moved to the rear to allow disengaging the teeth that connect the calibration ring to the cam. The range marks on the calibration ring are also used as a reference system for the setting of the cam. The indicator arrow on the cam is set as close as possible to 355 on the calibration ring. Push the range ring forward to re-engage the teeth on the cam and the calibration ring. Retighten the range ring retaining screws, and your scope is now set for your cartridge. If you're one of the few who is lucky enough to have a 200-yard known distance range, zeroing the scope is very easy. Simply make sure that the cam is set on 200 yards, then using the conventional windage and elevation adjustments, zero the point of aim to be point of impact. If you would like to have maximum magnification, simply loosen the cam lock, move the power to 9, and the cam back to 200. Again, the point of aim is the point of impact. The scope can also be zeroed using a 100-yard range. Simply determine from published data the bullet path at 100 yards when the rifle is zeroed at 200 yards. Mark your target to show the desired point of impact. In our example, it's about 2 inches. Aim at the center of the target, but adjust the scope so the bullets hit in the indicated spot. The scope is now zeroed at 200 yards. If you have the range available, you may want to consider building a special target. The scope is designed to frame these dimensions. The target is 36 inches from top to bottom and 18 inches from each end to the center. The target is now placed at any range between 2 and 600 yards. Simply frame the 36-inch dimension between the outer crossbars. If you would like more magnification, first note the range to the target as shown on the cam. Then disconnect the cam lock, move the magnification to the power you desire, and then reset the cam to the range to the target. And again, simply 0, so point of aim is point of impact. The bullet path is now coordinated with the ballistic cam. The use of the scope is extremely simple. Literally, all you do is just frame the target and then aim dead on with the center crosshair. Here's a nice little buck at about 250 yards. Once you do the framing, all you do is hold dead on. If you would like to have more magnification and the target is cooperative, then note the range on the range ring, here 250 yards. Disconnect the cam lock, move the power to 9 power, then make sure that the cam is still set on 250 yards. You now have 9 power and the scope is zeroed at 250 yards. You'll also notice that the marks on the horizontal wire are very useful in estimating lead on a moving target. Now that we've talked about the basics, here are some additional tips on how to use the scope. The center area of the reticle has other useful framing dimensions besides those already given. For example, the body of a grown coyote is about 36 inches long. Another example is a pronghorn that is about 54 inches tall. The scale in the lower left quadrant is very useful in helping you remember the dimensions for the center of the reticle. The scale itself can be used for framing dimensions that range from 6 inches to 12 feet. Here's a tip for quick shooting in open country. Even in open country, most deer are shot at 200 yards or less. Set the cam on 200 yards and the magnification on 6 power. Now, if the deer is bigger than or equal to the upper and lower marks, the range is 200 yards or less, and no ranging is necessary. The scope's maximum range of 600 yards was chosen to correspond with the maximum reliable killing range of today's rifles. This is a very nice buck, but you can tell by the way he fits in the framing marks, he's about 1,200 yards away. So even with this scope, there will be times when you just have to get closer. For additional information, please consult the manual that accompanies your scope. We truly hope that the capabilities of this unique scope make it so that the last time you see that big buck is on your wall, not going over.